Welcome back, everyone, to this episode of Dale's Rails. This is an extended edition of my last video. I've got the Boston and Maine painted now. I didn't have it done in time when I released the video initially, so I thought I'd go ahead and put this out now just because I have some new arrivals that came for the layout that I plan on doing videos on next week. And there are a couple of items you just don't see that often, so I thought it'd be worth sharing those with you. And some other commenters had commented on the Turtle Wax Trim Restore about certain characteristics of it. And I just want to let you guys know, to clear this up, that what you want to do is you wipe this down after you apply it. You wipe this down, and when you get done, it will dry to a nice natural sheen. So you don't really have to be too concerned about leaving like a wet look. One commenter commented that it left too much of a wet look. And the other things I thought would be worth pointing out on this product, it can be removed easily. So if you want to repaint, there isn't any issue with that I'm aware of. It's something that would probably come off with soap and water. At the very least, it's probably, you'd have to do, or the worst you'd have to do, maybe use some alcohol or something like that to be sure. But if there's something that, this is not something that's going to last forever. With our locomotives being indoors like this, it's going to last a good long while. Because they just, if you don't have your locomotives in a spot where they get UV light, you don't have to be too concerned about it. And the other thing I wanted to point out about that product is I have never had experienced any issues of it removing any painted on lettering or decals. So it's going to improve everything that's on there. I have not had that attack anything and remove it. In fact, when I washed these locomotives, I'd commented in the last video, I was a little bit concerned because I did get some red residue in the soap water, probably from oxidation. And I noticed that when I applied the product on there, I had no red residue in the rag. So not something you really got to be concerned about attacking the paint on these models, or the decaling or the lettering. Okay, so I'm getting this prepped. If you're new to the hobby, I'm getting this prepped to be painted, and it's a good idea to use like this narrower masking tape like this. Tamiya is a good brand. I didn't find Tamiya. I'm going to try this. This is something I found at Hobby Lobby. I'll have to see how good it works. But the advantage to the narrow stuff is it's easier to, mask these lines. And then not only that, you can see I've got this irregular surface I got to mask over. I don't want to get any bleed in behind there. So the narrower stuff is easier to, lay down over these rough surfaces, and so I can go back down and back over, and then along this edge. It's just a lot easier, quicker to line it against this edge too. And then you want to overrun each end on your tape, and then what that's going to do, you're going to take your your X-Acto knife, and I take and use the back side of the blade. Then once I get this down, I like to run it down along this edge, and that's going to ensure a good tight seal against the edge so paint can't run in behind. And then you want to tuck that in here on each end and then cut it. You don't want to try to, cut the end of the tape square and line it up in there. This is going to give you a good tight line all the way to the edge. if you overrun these edges and then cut them. Same thing, you know, I'm just using regular painter's masking tape for the rest of this. It's going to be pretty simple to use it. I think it's going to do fine. I've used this before. This is a pretty good brand of masking tape. It's 3M, and you know, I've had good luck with it. And the same thing with that, you know, you're going to want to overrun it and then cut your edges here, you know, tuck it in, and then, you know, don't really lay it down, but you want to kind of tuck it in, kind of like you're, you know, wallpapering. Well, I guess if you've never wallpaper, you don't know what I'm talking about, but, you know, you want to tuck that in, and then I use the edge and press along the edge here, and then I cut it. And that's going to seal that down on each end. You want to do that on each end. You can see this little edge here. It's got a solid edge here. This part here was painted black. So this is a kind of a raised area like this is right here down each side of the back here. And so this was painted black, this little narrow strip here. I don't know if you can see that. It was painted black. So I'm going to do the same thing rather than mask that off. Well, I guess I've never pulled the trucks off of one of these 200 series Alcos. They've got this very unusual, I don't know what you call that, not like a normal stud that you'd see on a set of trucks. And then they got these really small little horseshoe with these little tiny holes in there. I don't know of any snap ring tool that small that you can get those on off. So this was very interesting to try to pull these off. So I finally got them off, and so now it's a matter of trying to put them back on. And you know, they're probably going to be just as much challenge to get back on as they were off. But really unusual. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that type of normally they just have the normal horseshoe clamps that go on here, and then this is very peculiar. So thought I'd show that to you guys, because I've worked on a lot of stuff, and I've never seen this before. So apparently I've never tried to pull off the dummy trucks before off of one of these Alcos. Well, I got these painted, and they turned out reasonably well, all things considered. I had a really bad experience with using the Satin Canyon Black on the B unit here. I painted it first just because it was, you know, it was easier to mask, and I was able to come out and shoot it right away. And, you know, when I put the Satin Canyon Black on here, it went down really smooth, and it looked like glass. And other than the fact that it was too shiny, I knew I was going to have to give it a chance to dry before I could make my final determination if it just had too much sheen. But after seeing the frame dry and how much sheen was on that, it almost looked like gloss to me, and I didn't really want that much sheen. And it turned out I ended up getting a really bad paint job in the end anyway, even though this shot down real smooth and glassy. When it dried, somehow this whole roof turned grainy. I'm not sure what happened. It was very, very grainy. It almost looked like, you know, if you were trying to make a vinyl top, that would be the way to do it. But I didn't want a vinyl top on my locomotive. So I tried to, you know, reduce that down by sanding it some more. And the other problem I had with that locomotive, it dried all night and it was still tacky the next morning. And I'm not sure what happened, but I went out and bought a can of the flat black, just because I've used it before. Now that I think about it, I think that's probably why I don't have any more flat black, is because you know, I used it up because that's kind of my go-to, especially when I'm painting my steam engines shells. And I think what I've discovered is to paint them down with the flat black, and with this particular flat black. And then, I'm going to use this matte clear enamel. Now this particular matte will lay down some sheen, so it's going to have more sheen than what we see here now. I thought this flat black had a little bit more sheen, and it's a little bit more flat than I realized. If you want something very flat, it's probably not flat enough for you. But I noticed when I was there, I don't know if it's a new product or not, but they make this in a can called Ultra Matte Black. So apparently they have one that's going to be ultra matte, if you want to go that way. This is probably not quite enough sheen for me, so I'm going to clear coat this. I've got this blue cleaned real good, and it'd be a good time to shoot everything down. It's going to probably pull all the colors out anyway, just by shooting the whole thing down. I want to seal all this in, and it's just going to be a better overall finish, uniform looking final finish on this if I just clear coat the whole thing. So one of the issues I had on this locomotive is I ended up masking the numbers off because I wasn't sure how to deal with that. So I'm not sure what I'm going to end up doing with that eventually. I don't know if I'm just going to leave that little patch there exposed blue, if that's going to look weird. If not, I'm going to probably have to hand paint in around those numbers unless somebody's got a good idea. I tried to use a liquid masking, and I just didn't have good results with that. And, probably because I didn't really have the right stuff to do it with. And, that might have been the way to go. I did have some applicators to help aid in that, but I ended up just using rubber cement, and it probably would have worked, but you would have probably had to coat the whole area and then cut out around the numbers and remove the liquid rubber cement between the numbers. And I was attempting to do that, but I just couldn't really, deal with it. It just kept messing up on me. So didn't really have any good way to deal with the numbers on this. So if nothing else, I'll probably just paint in between the numbers with my acrylics, because nice thing about the acrylics are water, and even if I get some spilled over onto the numbers, it's pretty easy to just remove it off the numbers without moving the surrounding. And then I'll probably do that before I shoot a clear coat down, and just clear coat the whole thing, and you won't even probably tell it. So that's going to be the plan. Same thing here. I'm going to attempt to hand paint, this logo back on the front. So it turned out really a lot brighter and crisper than what it used to look like. So I'm really pleased with the end results, even though given all the little issues I still have to deal with. So you can transform your locomotives pretty easily, guys. So this isn't really that hard to do. It's a learning curve anyway. I mean, every time you do something like this, you learn something new. And then hopefully some people that can see this, that knows what they're doing, can give me some hints. So if you got some ideas on how to deal with these numbers on the side, how to paint that in, feel free to leave a comment. Okay, let's do some unmasking here. See how this turned out. Yeah, that's showing up pretty good. Get this, a little bit of touching up to do here and there, I notice. Tape worked really good, I'll have to say that. Okay. All right, now for the weird part. Get ready to shutter. I can get this off there without scratching something up. Well, there it is. Yeah, it doesn't look quite right, does it? But you know, it's going to work for now. I think I shouldn't have any problem just painting all that in with my acrylics. And like I said, I'll do that, and then I'll shoot everything down with clear, and it'll seal all that in and make all these paints the same color. Because the acrylics, you know, they're matte, but they're even more matte than this, so I'm afraid it's going to be noticeable. You know, I do have some glazing I could put in there. Maybe that would work, but probably going to be too much of a pain to try that. I think it's just going to be simpler to use it straight out of the bottle. What I like about doing the acrylics also, you can put a lot of water in it to make this easier to spread around and make it easier to get close to these lines without making too many mistakes. And like I say, if it spills over, big deal. You know, I've got those little fine detailing cotton swabs. It'd be real simple. All you got to do is put a little bit of water on it. You don't even need alcohol, and just put some water on there and rub, and it'll come right off. So I'm going to try that and see if that works. Sorry guys, I was going to show you, I'm just cutting in around. I decided to go ahead and cut in around this with my black acrylic. Nice thing about the acrylic, it's water-based. You want to make sure you use plenty of water. That's the key really here, so you can really work this in close to the edge. And with the numbers being raised a little bit, it helps out, you know, getting this right up next to the edge. So really, you know, I kind of fretted over this for nothing. I spent a lot of time trying to mask this. So this was by far a lot faster. I don't know how much time I'd spent trying to mask it, because I think I made 3 different attempts. So I was probably one too many, you know. After the second time, I should have just called it quits then. And this just turned out to be, you know, too easy to do, really, just doing it this way. And really, once this dries, you can see it's still a little wet, but once this dries, it blends in really good with this matte spray paint that I put on here. Well, I decided to go ahead and just cut in around the number here with the black paint to fill that in. I think it looks a little better. And then I went ahead and painted the front logo on. So pretty easy to do all that with just the acrylics. Nice thing about it, they're water based in it, so it's easy to, you know, to add and remove as need be. So don't be afraid to kind of mix your, you know, your acrylic to do your detail work like that. I got kind of lucky. The black matched pretty well. Can't really even tell where I patched it in at. And like I said, I'm going to shoot all this down with acrylic, and that's going to seal all this, so it's never going to come off. So same thing with this. So it'll be there, you know, until the next guy decides he needs to redo these. Well, there they are. They look a lot better than they did before. So, you know, I still got a clear coat and everything, but, you know, I got all the graphics painted back, you know, and filled that in. I think that looks better now. You know, I'm not sure that I'm going to put the white stripes down here. I don't know. What do you guys think? Kind of like them like that. So I'm not sure about the white stripes. Let's give them a run around, see how they look. Well, I think they came out almost as good as new, so a lot better than they were. So I'm really pleased with how they came out. You know, they still need a little bit more work. This coupler here is missing the springs, so it doesn't want to stay centered. So that's gonna bug me until I get that fixed. But yeah, I just couldn't deal with them all messed up like that, so I had to get them fixed. And that's kind of the way I am when I bring something into the layout. You know, whether it needs servicing or whatever, I mean, it's going to get some attention right away just because, I don't know, I just can't go very long leaving them like that. So, I don't know. Well, thanks for tuning in. Till next week, you're watching Dale's Rails. Thanks for watching.